is comprised of 16 members from various constituency groups, including community members, students, faculty, and staff. And as we articulated well over a month ago during our kickoff, the charge for this group was to identify a sustainable model to right-size NVU and to find a 15 to 25% budget reduction to be achieved annually starting in fiscal year 22, all with the goal of building a strong, bright future for Northern Vermont University. The committee has been working very hard to establish a new vision that addresses the significant challenges that we face, challenges that have been greatly enhanced by the COVID-19 pandemic and the announcement from the Chancellor's office this spring that we're all very well aware of. Before we get into the heart of the update, I just want to stress that this is still a work in progress. It is still a work in progress. This work connects with other work that's going on at the system level. You are aware that there is another group, the VSCS Forward Committee, that is doing similar work, but at a system level. The work of the NVU Strong group connects in many ways to that work, and that work is ongoing. And so our work is still therefore a work in progress. And we will touch upon the relationship between the NVU Strong work and the work of the VSCS Forward group later on in the presentation. The presentation or the update will be structured as follows. In a manner consistent with our past update, we've invited two of our community members to provide the bulk of the update. So Catherine Sims will be summarizing the vision work of the committee, and Beth Foy will summarize the committee recommendations to President Collins. After their summaries, President Collins will provide an update, and then we'll open it up for questions. We do have a hard stop at 10:55. And so if you are unable to ask your question, I direct you to the link at the bottom of this slide, which is northernvermont.edu/strong. If you are unable to ask your question by 10:55, you can submit it there for the group to consider. So with that, I would like to introduce Catherine Sims, who will lead us through the summary of our vision. So Catherine.
Thanks, Nolan. As Nolan said, I'm Catherine Sims, the director of the Northeast Kingdom Collaborative. And I just want to start by saying that it has been an incredible privilege and honor to be a part of this work, supporting the reimagination and the sustainable future for Northern Vermont University during this time. This has been difficult, but really important work, and so grateful for all the engagement from the community and the committee members and the leadership team and the whole NVU family as we've set about on this journey to develop, to really reinvent the programs and business model to address the emerging and future needs of not only the university, but lifelong learners, the community, and really the region as a whole. I think we all on the committee know that this transformation must set NVU apart by incorporating all of the ideas and suggestions that we've heard from the community, enabling NVU to support local communities, and ensure that college is affordable for all. We all know that NVU provides critical access to higher quality education for Northern Vermont, including really our most vulnerable Vermonters. And without NVU, those students would not have access to higher education opportunities in our region. And so as we set forward, we wanted to explore how NVU could strengthen this access by offering flexibly delivered programs to support lifelong learning. And central to our vision is an affordable degree program that meets the critical Vermont needs around career preparation, civic engagement, community service, and individual well-being. NVU degree programs will integrate academic learning along with career-oriented learning experiences, which will require students to engage in work experiences, which may take the form of internships or cooperative learning or on-campus jobs. And that the curriculum will connect students, faculty, and career professionals in hubs of work, action, service, and learning, both on campus, on site, and across the whole region. These will become invaluable hands-on experiences that will prepare students for their future careers through practical, career-oriented experiences, along with soft skills development, such as critical thinking, oral and written communication, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and so much more, while serving the needs of NVU partners and the communities that they serve. And so in order to achieve this vision of building work experiences, NVU will deepen its relationships with local and regional communities, including businesses, nonprofits, the creative sector, and so many more. While many students have and will continue to work with partners off campus, one of the really innovative aspects of this vision is to formalize partnerships and include partners in actually co-locating on campus and potentially underwriting academic programming. Together, all of these partnerships will create a learning and working community that will act and integrate work and classroom experiences and embrace and encourage lifelong learning on campus at NVU. Courses and programs will be reinvented in partnership with the collaboration and community partners. Academic and degree certificates will be routinely revisited and reinvented in order to align with relationships and emerging and future workforce development needs. The co-location of partners on campus will generate energy and will help utilize campus resources in really new and exciting ways. Altogether, we see this vision as creating a vibrant working community that provides flexibility for students, strengthens the region's economy and workforce, and maximizes the use of campus resources, and reduces the cost of earning an NVU degree. So our committee's recommendations include asking the NVU executive team to create an FY22 balanced budget that supports this new vision and the ideas the committee discussed. And our committee recognizes that while there is a need to right size NVU, that should be undertaken with great care. That the focus should really be on the vision and the model that allows for growth and assures sustainability for the organization and its future, while right sizing and also investing in areas to create that future. And we recognize that this is a really difficult time when we will need to make difficult choices. But the alternative to not making those tough choices is no NVU. So this is important, essential work for the future of the organization. And our guiding principles for this vision are to be learner-centric, strive to meet the workforce development needs in the region, focusing on a credential mix that is stackable, promotes lifelong learning, offers multiple modalities accessible to all learners, and addresses affordability, reducing the overall cost of earning an NVU degree. And so at the end of this, I think our committee walked away incredibly excited about this opportunity to transform NVU for this current time. And I'm going to pass it to Beth Foy to dig in a little bit more deeper into some of the specifics of the recommendations.
Thank you, Catherine. Just to introduce myself really quickly, I'm a Johnson resident and very passionate about the need for NVU in our communities. So I just want to let folks know who I am. So we spent many hours working through what our recommendations ultimately would be, painstaking in some cases. And ultimately we came up with a few buckets of recommendations that we are submitting to President Collins. Those buckets include lifelong learning, academics, facilities and student experiences, academic calendar, and athletics. So I'll touch on each of these as I go through a little bit further. And one thing I just want to point out is that the committee was unanimous in agreement on almost all of the recommendations in these areas. I'll touch on that a little bit further. The full report is available at northernvermont.edu/strongfuture if you're interested in reviewing the full report. I'm sure that will be reiterated a little bit later. The first area that I just want to spend a little time talking about is lifelong learning. As our team of representatives in all areas that Nolan mentioned earlier worked through the topics that we really wanted to recommend, one area stood out, which was the need for lifelong learning through NVU from high school through your career and post-retirement opportunities, and providing a continuous process for degree and skill acquisition and development and improvements to aid in career development. So that was an important topic to cover. One item that really stood out is we need to streamline some of those efforts to allow for some flexibility to students, whether they be a typical four-year degree student or whether it be a mother of five who wants to improve on skills. The important piece of this is to create available and flexible course offerings to meet all student needs, and also to develop some hybrid online, on-campus, maybe a little bit of both, learning opportunities for all. And just to build out the flexibility that is already there at NVU, but just build it out further to allow for lifelong learning opportunities. One aspect of that is creating on and off ramps. And what that means is essentially building out stackable degree and certificates. For example, a one-year certificate after completing general education and then moving into an associate's degree and being able to stack that and build on to earn a bachelor's degree is one example of on-off ramps. And at any one of those points, a student would have the option to leave the program with a certificate or leave with an associate's degree and come back to further a bachelor's degree or work toward the bachelor's degree from the beginning and earn some of those other certificate and degree options. So there was much discussion around the availability to do something of that nature. We also have a very important piece to the lifelong learning, which is incorporating working with our partners, partnering businesses and organizations to align with the needs of the workforce, while also providing professional development to our students, and whether they be the younger generation just out of high school or non-traditional students and adults. This also allows for the liberal arts options too of meeting social and service needs to our communities, in addition to building our workforce needs. So the topic of lifelong learning is an important topic and category that we ask that President Collins and the administration consider as part of the recommendations from the committee. Another bucket of recommendation that we suggest is related to facilities and student experience. One topic that was recommended is the idea of establishing a partner services support and management position in order to support the working and learning community in our partnerships with other organizations. Additionally, the idea of selling and leasing space within the campuses for our organizations to work out of, which can be both separately or as part of the working and learning community, as long as it achieves the same goals that NVU is working toward. Additionally, an important part is obviously revenue. Revenue, it will continue to be a factor in all discussions. and not just revenue and expenses. So one portion of the facilities and student experience is seeking grants and business underwriting to facilitate the learning and working community, with some pretty significant goals for philanthropy, which you can find more details in the full report out on the website. In order to make a real transformation of NVU, it was clear that some areas need to be invested in and repurposed. And some examples of that are existing business and library space, to make more optimal use of the space with more flexibility. There are very specific and general recommendations around how to repurpose some of those spaces on our campuses. And that will allow for both the college itself as well as our partner organizations to utilize those spaces. Another area is restructuring student services to use shared working environment with both a hybrid of on-site and off-site modeling to allow for high demand times to be accommodated and best serve the students, as well as allowing for some flexibility with scheduling of staff, since there are peaks in different times of year for student services, depending on the scenario. This would also allow for staff to be cross-trained in some of the student service areas, and better serve the students. Lastly, in the area of facilities and student experience, there are some telepresence and telepresence-like technologies that are currently used at NVU. And the recommendation is that we expand on what is currently available and build out additional telepresence technologies, which would allow for more cross-campus and cross-institution access, both within the two NVU campuses and potentially within the Vermont State College System campuses holistically, as well as working with our partners. There's lots of benefits to having telepresence and building those technologies out. Well, there are more recommendations in terms of facility changes that I would encourage folks to read in the full report. Another bucket of work is academic calendar. There was discussion on academic calendar in a few different areas. One is about flexibility for students to allow for them to accelerate their degree programs and have more flexible offerings for students. Another reason for looking at an academic calendar and moving to potentially moving to a year-round model is to allow for the needs of the partners that we will be closely working with as part of the learning and working community. Both are important, and that flexibility will be critical to the success of those partnerships, as well as the success of students being able to accelerate some of the programs that they're working and degree programs they're working toward. Another bucket of work is the athletics programs. We learned some valuable information around athletic programs and the success and lack of success for some of those programs. And there is a recommendation that a minimum of 4 programs across both campuses that there is a review and suggested closure of 4 of those programs. This would also allow for 1 coach program per campus to transition to a full-time employee to align with the student service needs and partner service needs that we spoke about earlier in the earlier buckets. So there is a recommendation there to make those changes. And then the last big bucket was the most difficult, and probably not surprisingly, which is the topic of academics. It was widely agreed that there needs to be criteria and implementation considerations and changes in academics for the learning and working community concept. The committee largely agreed that the academic programs and courses should be reviewed. They need to be relevant to meeting the need of the program. And that the academic degrees and certificate programs should align with the partner relationships and the emerging and future workforce needs with a liberal arts foundation. And also, importantly, that work experience that will come with the learning and working community concept should be infused into the curriculum. I'm going to pause there for a second. That's a lot. There's a lot there. And that's why this was one of the most difficult tasks, because this impacts the academics as a whole. So we all agreed that exploring a system-wide general education program with a new structure on competencies is important. And also exploring the relationship with the CCV, Community College of Vermont, and relocating NVU's campus, relocating onto NVU's campus in general should be something that's looked at. So there is some interest. There's a lot of interest and a lot of recommendations that came from the community, as well as discussions within the committee that feel that CCV coming onto our NVU campuses would be beneficial. We also discussed program reviews and how to identify which programs should be closed, combined, and or moved to a system-wide, Vermont State College system-wide institution in a mutually beneficial manner. In the end, the academic programs was not something the committee came to a unanimous agreement on. We did talk about specific programs. We did make recommendations regarding academics. The vote was not a unanimous vote. It was quite split. So ultimately, the recommendation is that the NVU executive team complete the program review and identify programs that should be closed, combined, or moved to another VSCS institution. It is understood, I think all of us understand, that NVU can't be all things to all people. We need to have a viable state college system and an institution that stands out and provides access and affordability and sustainability to our community. The academic discussion is critical to making those things happen. We also recommended that the Vermont State College System Forward Committee, so the system-wide committee that has been established, initiate conversations with unions regarding employee wage and benefits, because we know that the academic program decisions will be reflected in those discussions. That really sums up the major buckets and the major recommendations for those buckets. Again, there's a lot more detail available. Catherine, do you want to jump in and close this out?
Thanks, Beth. That was a lot to digest. You did an excellent job. And so I'm going to shift a little bit kind of beyond just the recommendations from the committee for NVU specifically, because our committee recognizes that while NVU has a lot of work that it can do on its own to right size and create sustainability, it cannot do all of that work on its own, and that much of the path forward depends on some changes at the system level as well. And so our committee has a series of recommendations for the Vermont State College Systems Forward Task Force to consider. And those include working to eliminate competition across the VSCS institutions to create a more seamless, barrier-free pathways for all students, while recognizing that some degrees do need to be offered at each college to ensure that local needs are met, but really working to offer a seamless program that avoids competition across the institutions. Another recommendation is around creating a systems-wide core curriculum and competencies, making common courses available across all campuses using telepresence rooms and other technology, because doing so will give students flexibility and assist with timely degree completion. We also recommend moving to a year-round academic calendar to enable more accelerated degree programs, including 3-year degree programs. We recommend initiating conversations with the 3 unions regarding employee wages and benefits, as Beth alluded to earlier. We also recommend exploring possible benefits of moving to a 1 accreditation model. Also adjusting the appropriations formula to address the higher fixed costs of NVU because of the 2 campuses that the university maintains. We recommend decentralizing and reducing the Office of the Chancellor. We also recommend advocating for VSAC portability, recognizing that Vermont is one of the few remaining states that does not keep its VSAC grants in state. And the committee respectfully requests that VSAC grants be given to Vermonters who choose to stay in Vermont to pursue their career or degree. And we also call on the committee to release a statement acknowledging the importance of both NVU and the Vermont State College system, recognizing that the Vermont State Colleges fulfill the critical mission of ensuring access to higher education for all Vermonters. So those are recommendations that we're passing forward up to the Vermont State College Systems Forward Task Force. And I'll end by saying again that we were so tremendously grateful for all of the community engagement in this process. It has been invaluable to informing our committee's thinking and reflections and ultimate recommendations. And pleased to share that the initial reactions to this plan, especially the learning and working model from our last community update and in our conversations with numerous partners across the region, have been very enthusiastic. In fact, we were able to provide Dr. Collins with a letter of support signed by over 25 community leaders representing a cross-sector, a sort of diverse representation of sectors across the region, so that she could include that with her presentation to the Board of Trustees. And we're so pleased to have the community buy-in around this work and learn model. And again, in closing, for our committee, we recognize that NVU, continues to demonstrate innovation and excellence along with grit and resiliency. And that our committee is confident that NVU's new model will create an incredibly vibrant working community that provides flexibility for students, strengthens our region's local economy and workforce development needs, maximizes the use of campus resources, and reduces the cost of earning a degree. So, as a member, I'm pleased to be able to reflect on where we've gotten. And as Nolan said at the beginning, this is still very much a work in progress. And we look forward to your feedback and engagement and all working together to ensure that NVU has a strong, vibrant, and sustainable future. And so with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Collins for closing remarks.
First of all, I just want to say thank you both to Catherine and Beth. You've just been rocks on this committee. That you're just amazing people. And thank you for taking so much time to help us move our plans along and create a new vision and a pivot point for NVU at this critical juncture. I would also like to thank all members of the committee for your dedication, for your support, for your endless contributions. As articulated earlier, I know that it has not been an easy job, and we asked a lot of you, almost too much. to ask of anyone, but you carried it through with amazing, I'll use the grit and resiliency again, type of language, because that is what I continuously see up here in Northern Vermont. So very much thank you. I believe that this work will lay an important foundation for future generations. And I'm reminded that how important it is for us to maintain our organization and institution to provide quality education for generations to follow. We've done it for the past 100 years, and we're not going to give up now. I'd also like to thank all of you watching today for, again, your support, for taking time to hear this message, for taking time to think through how your part may look in implementing this amazing vision that we have for our future. And what I'd like to do right now is to kind of recap where we are now as compared to, I'm not going to go back to where we started, but a lot of things have changed. So I just want to make sure that we as a community or as a NVU family are up to date with what is going on. So first of all, I'd like to say two things that we didn't have when we started that I think are critical to moving this vision forward are the reports from State Treasurer Beth Pierce and also the report from Jim Page. What I am thrilled to say about these reports is that they both independently articulate the position that we have tried to make explicit for many years now, and that is that the Vermont State Colleges need additional support and funding to maintain their sustainability into the future. So both, like I said, independently, they both have come to the same conclusion. And that is really important to me for the reasons that some people could think that we're just crying wolf, or we are just overstating or utilizing COVID as a lever to get money for the Vermont State Colleges, which is not really necessary. And it is clear, like in both of these reports, that we clearly need additional funding. And the additional amount, it's rather interesting, because I was kind of wondering, if they would start to coalesce, and they seem to be coalescing around the figure of $30 million. All right. I want to point you specifically to page 17 of Jim Page's report. I think you'll find there some really interesting points that he made related specifically to NVU. And I think the report in general, Jim Page's report, was extraordinarily favorable to NVU. He mentions that NVU, to be successful right now, needs meaningful messages of support and commitment. We need to provide both our community and our prospective students and our existing students confidence that our future is solid and we are strong and we are going to remain for generations to come. And that is articulated by Jim Page, as I mentioned, on page 17. And the other point that he makes is, and this is a point that we repeatedly have made as well, that NVU needs time. You cannot pivot an entire organization. I mean, we went into unification. We were 18 months into unification before we started hearing about, all of these kind of negative thoughts about NVU's future. And that is just not fair for us to succeed. We need strong commitment. We need time to carry out the vision that we started. And I think that where we're pivoting to now is an important next step. But again, we need time to carry that through. So our expectation now, as you know, we're asking for bridge funding for this coming year so that we can right-size the organization. And this is the time necessary, right? The time that I'm talking about, to make sure that we are in a place by fiscal year 22 where we can have a balanced budget, and that we will be in a place where we can sustain the additional demographic challenges that will be upon us around 2026. I'd like to give you also an update as to some of the other committees that are occurring. You've heard a little bit about the VSC Forward Committee. That committee is currently in process. I anticipate that their work will continue through August. So I'm very much looking forward to their final recommendations, as I think they will be key to how we enter that fiscal year 2022 that I mentioned. Also, another committee that I'm not sure that all of you know about is this Blue Ribbon Commission that is being put together by the legislators. And specifically, my understanding is that yesterday the Senate Ed Committee discussed what they wanted to do with the Blue Ribbon Commission. Initially, there was a wider scope to it, but my understanding is now that the entire scope will be on the Vermont State Colleges. And initially, there were something like in a range of 60 people to be on this committee. Now it's been whittled down to 15, with I believe 6 of those 15 coming directly from the Vermont State Colleges. So it'll be important to watch what that committee does as well. And then I think also critical will be the integration between the task forces, the system VSC Forward Committee, and also this Blue Ribbon Commission, to ensure that we are all kind of marching along in the same direction. Just a quick legislative update. And again, a lot of this is a repetition perhaps of what you've heard before, but I just want to make sure that you hear from me where we are at this point in time. As you know, the governor did sign a $12.5 million coronavirus relief bill, which will provide that money for our use to be spent by December fiscal year 2020. It's going to be important that you understand that this money can only be used for coronavirus kind of relief areas. It cannot be used for any operating kinds of right sizing, all right? So, or balancing, I should say. Right now, we are waiting for specific guidance to see what exactly we can spend this money on. We know that 5.1 of this will be used to refill or refund the room and board expenditures that were made related to COVID needs. And additional monies will probably be dedicated for PPE, facilities modifications, and remote instruction around COVID needs. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we are as of right now. For the transitional budget, and this is what I'm calling the bridge funding, all right, the transitional budget. Where we are now, and this is as of a Senate appropriations meeting, the last one that was conducted, I believe that they had identified up to $22.758 million. Again, 15 million of that is COVID related. So that is going to come with the kinds of specific strings attached that I mentioned before. So we will need probably, close to that 30 million to make us whole again. And we need to continue to look at that to make sure that we are reaching that goal. The capital bill of $2 million has been relatively non-controversial, so I anticipate that that will move forward as expected. And then the only other piece to know is that the Blue Ribbon Commission, that money will be taken out of the bridge funding, so that we will also need to consider that in future planning. All right, so that kind of catches you up on the legislative budgeting as far as I know. Just to recap, I'm not going to really go over the specific points that Beth and Catherine made, because they did a very great job of sharing those. I will just say that we will be continuing to work to hone our niche. I think it's going to be very important that we can clearly differentiate ourselves in the marketplace moving forward. I think we have a definite start on that by our learning and working community. And in that learning community, offering degrees to students that integrate meaningful work experiences. I think that is key. I think that is what students have been asking for. And I think that, that will help to position us. So we will continue to work to hone how this is different, let's say, or slightly pivoting from where we were. The major points, however, still are embedded within this program. That is that students coming out of NVU are still going to gain a very strong and quality professional education with a liberal arts foundation so that they can meet the needs of their future. I will close on the fact, at least around the learning and working community model, just to say that, I've heard some people ask the question, so how is this going to help? How does this help us, get to where we need to be by fiscal year 22? Or how does it really differ from what we have? Well, I would argue that it is quite different than what we have, because what we have was not really a formalized and deep kind of close relationship with our business partners. Perhaps in some areas we did, but I could not say that across the board in every single discipline that we had these meaningful opportunities for students. So in formalizing this and in giving, and that's kind of one difference that I see. Another difference that I see is that we also have obviously not moved to really utilize our resources more efficiently. And so by having an opportunity now to either sell resources that we're not utilizing or to lease those to our working partners, I think that will reduce our footprint and will make serious good use of our facilities. So, and also obviously provide students with the opportunity to just kind of walk down the hall and get engaged with an industry in ways that they may not have had the opportunity to do before. So I think that those things are different. I think that some other changes that were discussed, we're going to continue to work to streamline the efficiencies that we started with our unification efforts. So you will continue to see that happen. And we will obviously, as part of the charge moving forward, move to complete our program review. And that will identify, and it's a difficult process, as you may expect. It will result in perhaps, it will result in programs that will be closed, that could be combined, that may be offered to another Vermont State College institution. But in doing this and in looking at some of the efficiencies we can realize, I think you've also heard about the importance of supporting some of these new ideas and utilizing resources to put back into the support of new programs that we can open for students. Additionally, what I see as a help in terms of moving to our future and helping us to meet our budget goals is I believe that this new model will open up grant opportunities that we haven't had before. I think that, as I mentioned, it will utilize our facilities and open up revenue streams there in ways that we haven't had before. It will open up opportunities with existing and new donors. We've already had some conversations with donors, and we're seeing some interest and some figures that we haven't really heard about before. So very excited about that. We're also hoping that as we create these opportunities. And yesterday we had a meeting with one industry that we have on our list as a partner. What they were talking about is perhaps marketing at a national level. And if they market at a national level to say that we are kind of an industry leader and we will help people who are interested or students who are interested in working in that industry gain the kind of experience that they need to be hired, I think that that will result in additional numbers of students. And again, draw on perhaps a national context that we have started to move into, but definitely we can utilize more fully. And by that, I mean, I refer to the point that given all of the competition in New England and the difficulty of recruiting the demographic of traditional age students in New England, if we have a national image and we have industries talking about how important we are to that industry, it can draw students from areas that do not have similar demographic challenges. And lastly, I think that definitely we have more opportunities for credential programs, non-academic programs through the Center for Professional Studies. I've heard great interest expressed, especially across the Northern Tier, for our help in providing professional development to employees who are looking to get to the next step in their career. And I think that we can play a more significant role in that as well. So I'm just offering my own thinking in terms of ways that I think that this new model is different I think it extends the work that we've begun, but I think it does pivot and is different and offers great new hope for our future. Lastly, I do want to say that I'm going to refer you, and this kind of goes back to our last update where I asked that you continue to write and inform your legislators about the importance of NVU long into the future. And I will refer you to a new page that we have up on our website. It is, if you type in northernvermont.edu/action, you will find a new advocacy page. It will give you addresses, phone numbers, and everything you need to be able to contact your legislators and again, remind them of the critical need and role that NVU plays for our communities and for our future generations. So thank you for listening, and thank you again for all of your support. To the committee, I'm going to miss you, but I'm hoping to see you out there with me as ambassadors for our wonderful institution in the years to come. Nolan, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, President Collins. Just two very quick points before we get to questions and answers, and I am very mindful of the time. We have about 6 minutes left. So first of all, if we don't get to your question, please go to northernvermont.edu/strong and you can enter your question there, and we will review it and consider it and respond to it. Secondly, I just want to make in addition to part of what Beth and Catherine noted in terms of recommendations, one area where we did talk about, and there was consensus to develop in terms of programming is the graduate programming. So either standalone programs or programs that are 3+2s with an undergraduate degree or 4+1s. I just want to make sure that that's absolutely clear as well, because that was unanimously agreed upon by the committee. So with that, we will, for the next 5 minutes, turn it over to the questions that we can get to. Again, to go to northernvermont.edu/strong if we don't get to your question.
Okay, first up, we're going to have Adrian Hutchinson, followed by Allison Lathrop. Just a quick reminder that please unmute yourself when your name is called and you're next up, and I will give you a friendly reminder when you have 20 seconds left on your time. You'll have 60 seconds to ask your question. So Adrian Hutchin, followed by Allison Lathrop. Adrian, you're up.
Hi, Professor Collins. I just have one quick thing to say. As far as your program review goes, I just want to let you know that the restorative justice field, we are the only ones that offer this program. And it's especially relevant now in light of the recent changes in the criminal justice system nationwide. We do work with the Restorative Justice Center in St. Johnsbury, and we can work with the court system in St. Johnsbury and the umbrella, because I have worked with them when I was with CCV, and they are more than happy to work with us, and they are a perfect partner for us. So
20
that is
seconds.
something that we should definitely not cut, and we should really look into. So that's just my 2 cents as a criminal justice major, and it's definitely something to, work with, because we are the only ones that have it.
Adrian.
And thank you for all your work.
All right, thank you, Adrian. I think there's complete agreement with your comments there, so thank you.
Next up, Allison Lathrop, followed by Michael Stevens. And Allison, you're up.
Thank you. And the first thing I want to do is thank the committee, because it's been an incredible lift, and you guys have done amazing work. I have one curricular concern, a serious one, and it regards general education. Regardless of whether a competency-based gen ed becomes our thing, and I find that intriguing, there will undoubtedly still need to be introductory courses that serve gen ed. Gen ed at NVU right now is largely comprised of introductory level courses in which success is fundamental for students in the programs so that they can succeed in their upper level courses later. How
20
are you
seconds.
planning to ensure program continuity if CCV becomes principally responsible for gen ed? We have a history of trying to work with CCV curricularly, and it is not encouraging. So this is really serious for our students.
I think that's a good point, Allison. I don't know what that looks like. So it was a recommendation to explore a system-wide gen ed and to have CCV potentially be part of that. So what that exactly looks like, we don't know yet, but your point is well taken. But what I would say is that, and this has to be part of the conversation with the VSCS Forward group, and that is the level of collaboration across the system needs to pivot in a way that we've never seen it before. There needs to be much tighter and greater collaboration between our institutions if in fact the system is going to be sustainable moving forward. And so I think you've hit on a very important question and concern that would have to be central if we move in that direction to the discussion to ensure that students are in fact getting the requisite skills that they're going to need to be successful in those upper level courses.
Thank you, Nolan.
And next up, we have Janet Benyon, followed by Mark Murphy. And Janet, you're up.
Say, Lauren, I thought Mike Stevens was next.
He's okay being skipped, Nolan.
Oh, okay.
Janet Benyon, you're up if you're here. Okay, looks like Janet might no longer be with us. Mark Murphy.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Nope, we can hear you now. We couldn't hear you
Okay.
before.
So there was some talk about VSC-wide specialties to avoid competition. Does that mean we'll be working with Castleton on these programs, or is it just the Johnson-Linden Bridge that you're talking about?
So Janet, this is system-wide. This is part of the charge of the VSCS Forward group again, and that is actually their first bullet point is program duplication across the system. So this is beyond Linden and Johnson. This is across the entire system.
Thank you.
I think we have time for maybe one more question, unfortunately, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Okay, then the last speaker today will be Mark Murphy. Mark, you're up.
Thank you for taking my call. I hope you can hear me. Glad that you're doing this study right now. It's very important to be doing this. My quick question is, has NVU or any institution done a study to see if the needs of the workforce and the community are matching what we have to offer?
Mark, I think your question was, has NVU initiated a study to address or to see what the workforce needs are in Vermont and then to see if the programming matches the need? I'm hoping I got that.
Correct.
NVU has not initiated a formal study to do that work. What we have done is to reach out to existing partners and other potential partners to identify what their needs are. We have not initiated a formal study. But I think you're hitting on what is critical to realizing this new vision, and that is aligning the needs of partners in the workforce with the programs. And we can't do that alone. We're going to have to do that work with partners and others, with the Vermont Department of Labor and others, to ensure that, in fact, the programs are meeting the needs of the workforce. So we haven't formally talked about initiating a study, but this will be part of our future work, which is to develop an implementation plan to move this vision forward. So that would be a question we would ask as we move that implementation plan work forward. So I think with that, unfortunately, I apologize that we didn't get to a lot of your questions. I am aware that there are a number of people that are in the queue to ask questions. So I'm going to direct you to northernvermont.edu/strong to enter your question there, and we will respond to them. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to President Collins. Is she still on? Give her the last word. She may have already left. President Collins, are you there? I guess I don't see her. Okay. All right. So I guess with that, I want to just thank everybody for participating today with this update and following our work. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll keep you informed as this continues to progress. So again, thank you all for your time. Catherine and Beth, thank you very much for your work and for participating in the report out today. And I'll wish you all a great day. So thank you all.